I lost everything because I trusted my best friend, my career, my home, my future. Then, on the coldest night of my life, I found his wallet, stuffed with cash. I gave it back. What he gave me in return wasn't forgiveness. It was a house in the middle of nowhere, and a secret he never expected me to uncover. Before we dive in, I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're listening on your phone, tap that like button and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Stick with me until the very end. You won't want to miss what happens. And drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from. I'd love to see it. I never thought my life would come down to a frozen set of concrete steps and half a piece of stale bread. 2 years earlier, I used to design skyscrapers. Now I slept in their shadows. The November wind sliced through my jacket like it wasn't even there. I sat on the granite steps of an abandoned Art Deco theater, pulling my collar higher, though I knew it wouldn't help. Cold like this doesn't stop at clothing. It seeps. It finds the bones. It settles in places you didn't know could ache. People passed without seeing me. They always did. That's the strange thing about homelessness. You don't just lose your home, you lose your existence. Eyes slide past you, conversations flow around you. You become part of the scenery. Like a broken streetlight, everyone learned to ignore. Once, people used to shake my hand like it meant something. Once, my name opened doors. Once, this city applauded my ideas. I used to be a structural engineer, the kind who obsessed over load distributions and stress tolerances, the kind who believed if you calculated carefully enough, nothing had to collapse. I helped redesign entire blocks of this city. I stood in boardrooms with men who wore watches worth more than my first car and watched them nod as I spoke. And now I waited for the public library to open so I could warm my hands and read for a few hours before they kicked me out again. Books were the only place that still respected logic. I broke off a piece of bread and chewed slowly, forcing my body to believe this was dinner. As I chewed, another image rose uninvited in my mind. A small dining nook filled with late afternoon sunlight, the smell of fried chicken, and laughter. Sierra's laughter. She used to laugh when I talked about my ideas. Not mockingly, lovingly, like she believed in them even when she didn't fully understand them. That laugh carried me through years of stress and sleepless nights. She lasted 6 months after everything fell apart. "I can't do this, Eli," she'd said during our last call, her eyes never meeting mine through the cracked phone screen. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't blame her. I blamed myself. I trusted the wrong man. Micah Thorne, my best friend since childhood. My business partner, the brother I chose. We built our company together from nothing. 2 boys who once swore loyalty by a riverbank turned into men who signed contracts worth millions. Or so I thought. The betrayal was clean, surgical. Forged documents, embezzlement accusations, auditors, police. By the time I understood what was happening, everything was gone. The company, my assets, my reputation. Micah walked away with all of it, and I walked out of the courtroom with a box of personal items and a future that collapsed in slow motion. An elevated train roared overhead, splashing icy slush across the sidewalk. Dirty water soaked my pants. I didn't even flinch. What was one more stain? I closed my eyes, trying to remember warmth, but all I saw was Micah's smile. The same one he wore the day he handed me papers to sign. "It's just a formality, Eli," he'd said. "For the IRS. Trust me." I trusted him. That was my crime. Something dark on the pavement caught my eye. A wallet. It lay a few feet away, half hidden near the curb. Thick leather. Expensive. The kind you don't drop unless you're distracted or arrogant enough to think nothing bad can happen to you. My heart started pounding before I even touched it. I looked around. The street was nearly empty. A couple of bundled figures hurried past in the distance, eyes locked forward, minds already somewhere warm. Slowly, I stood and walked over. The wallet was heavy. Inside were stacks of large bills, folded neatly, like someone who expected money to always behave itself. Credit cards, IDs, a business card printed on thick stock. My vision blurred. Micah Thorne, CEO Stellar Development. Stellar Development. The new name for the company he stole from me. For a moment, the city tilted. This was fate mocking me. Not subtly, not poetically. This was fate leaning close and whispering, "Go ahead, take it." There was enough cash there to change everything. A room, hot food, new clothes, a way out. "Justice," whispered a darker voice inside me. I could disappear. He'd never feel it. Not like I did. I sat back down on the steps, the wallet heavy in my coat like a loaded gun. Two versions of me argued in my head. One was cold, bitter, exhausted. "Take it. He stole your life. This is nothing." The other sounded like the man I used to be. "If you take it, you become him." The sun dipped lower, painting the gray sky red. I sat there until my legs went numb. When I finally stood, I knew what I was going to do, even if I didn't know why I couldn't do otherwise. I walked toward the address on the business card. The glass doors of Stellar Plaza slid open silently, letting me into another universe. Marble floors, muted lighting, air that smelled faintly of money. The security guard looked at me like I was a stain that had learned to walk. "I need to see Micah Thorne," I said. He asked about appointments. I showed him the wallet. That changed things. The elevator shot upward. 42 floors. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked hollow, unrecognizable, a ghost wearing my face. Micah hadn't changed. Same suit, same confidence, same smile, just colder now. "Eli," he said, surprised, then amused. "Look at you." I handed him the wallet. "You dropped this." He checked it casually, then laughed. "Well, I'll be damned. Honesty from you. I'm impressed." He didn't thank me. Instead, he studied me like an animal he used to own. "A reward is due," he said finally. "Cash won't help you. You'd waste it." He tossed a set of old, rusty keys onto his desk. "My family house, Redemption Creek. Middle of nowhere, roof over your head if you can manage it." Then he smiled. "Live there if you can." I didn't say a word. I picked up the keys, and I left. I didn't know it yet, but those keys weren't just opening a house. They were opening the longest, strangest chapter of my life. The bus smelled like diesel, damp coats, and quiet resignation. I sat near the back, my bag on my lap, the keys heavy in my pocket. Each time they knocked together, they sounded like a reminder you chose this. The city faded behind me mile by mile, skyscrapers shrinking into silhouettes, then into nothing at all. No one spoke. Everyone on that bus was either running from something or headed toward it. I wasn't sure which I was doing. After 3 transfers, the bus dropped me at a cracked roadside stop that barely qualified as a town. From there, an old shuttle van rattled down a broken county road, stopping at places that didn't appear on any map. The driver finally slowed, squinted ahead, and shrugged. "Redemption Creek," he said. "That's as far as I go." I stepped out into silence. The van pulled away, leaving me alone at a muddy crossroads beneath a sky the color of wet steel. Wind cut across empty fields, carrying the caw of crows and the smell of cold earth. There were no streetlights, no signs, just a dirt road stretching forward like a dare. The last 18 miles, I walked. By the time the village appeared, my boots were soaked through and my hands barely worked. Redemption Creek looked like a place time had abandoned halfway through, destroying it, sagging houses, boarded windows, rusted metal sinking into the ground. Only one chimney smoked. Someone was still alive here. The house Micah gave me sat at the edge of the village. Number 7, last on the left. It looked exactly how he'd meant it to look. A rotting porch, peeling paint, windows like empty eye sockets, the yard choked with weeds, the kind of place you send someone when you want nature to finish the job. I stood there for a long time, wondering if this was where I finally stopped. The key turned with resistance, like the house itself was arguing. The door creaked open, releasing a smell of damp wood, dust, and something faintly herbal dried plants. Maybe old life. Inside, light barely filtered through grimy glass. A massive wood stove dominated the room. Benches lined the walls. A narrow bed sagged in the corner, covered with rags. It was ruin, but not abandonment. A mug sat on the table, dusty outside, clean inside. Soot marked the stove. A quilt peeked from beneath the rags. Not torn, just worn. Someone had been here. Exhaustion hit me all at once. I dropped my bag and sat on a bench, shivering. I tried to light a fire, but the wood was damp. Smoke filled the room, burning my eyes until I gave up. Darkness crept in. I hugged myself and waited. That's when I heard it. A floorboard creaking. My heart slammed against my ribs. I held my breath. Light flickered in the doorway. A small figure stepped inside, holding a kerosene lamp. "Who's there?" An elderly voice asked. She was old, impossibly old, with skin like parchment and eyes faded almost clear. She squinted at me, confused but not afraid. "Who are you, son?" My voice caught. "My name is Elijah." She tilted her head, studying my face. Then her eyes widened. "Micah," she whispered. Before I could react, she reached out and touched my cheek, her hand light as ash. "My son," she said, tears filling her eyes. "You came home." The world shifted. I tried to step back, but my legs wouldn't move. "You're mistaken," I said gently. "I'm not." She shook her head. "You've just grown. Your voice is deeper. But those eyes, those are your father's eyes." She smiled at me like I was a miracle. Micah's mother. Alive. He said she was dead. She bustled past me, muttering about stew and warmth, as if no years had passed. I stood there, stunned, the weight of realization crashing down. He hadn't just abandoned me, he abandoned her. The door opened again. A woman in her 50s stepped inside, carrying a basket. Strong build, sharp eyes. "Miss Eleanor, I brought bread." She stopped when she saw me. "And who is this?" "My son," the old woman said proudly. "Micah's home." The woman's gaze snapped back to me, hard and suspicious. "And who are you, really?" I swallowed. "I'm a relative," I said. "I came to check on her." She didn't believe me, not for a second, but she helped light the stove, handed over food, and warned me plainly, "If you hurt her, you answer to me." Her name was Brenda Hayes, community health worker. The only reason Miss Eleanor was still alive. That night, I ate bread and salt pork while a woman who wasn't my mother looked at me with absolute love. I tried to tell her the truth. She stopped me with a hand over mine. "I know everything," she said softly. "The city keeps you busy, but you came back. That's what matters." I nodded, and in that moment, I crossed a line I could never uncross. I stayed. Morning came with the smell of pancakes and smoke. She'd tucked a blanket around me during the night. No one had done that in years. I walked the yard, inspecting the damage. The house was barely holding itself together. The roof leaked. The walls breathed cold. I had no money, no tools. Brenda brought clothes. Warm ones, practical ones. You staying? She asked bluntly. I don't know. I answered honestly. She looked at me for a long moment. If you stay, she said, be real. Don't toy with her heart. I met her eyes. I won't. Work began. I borrowed tools, fixed shingles, chopped wood. My hands blistered, then hardened. Each nail driven felt like reclaiming something I'd lost. Miss Eleanor watched from the porch, offering advice meant for another man, another time. Sometimes she'd look at me strangely. You've changed, she'd say. Not like your letters. Letters? She showed me envelopes written in Micah's handwriting. Weekly letters he never sent. Someone had been lying to keep her alive. That night, I found a photo album. 2 boys by a river. Micah and me. Inseparable. She sighed when she saw it. I thought you'd always take care of each other. I didn't answer. I sat by the stove long after she slept, staring into the flames, knowing this place wasn't just punishment, it was a test, and I didn't yet know what it was asking of me. Life in Redemption Creek stopped feeling temporary without my permission. Days blurred into a rhythm older than ambition. Wake before dawn. Feed the fire. Make sure the house was warm before Miss Eleanor opened her eyes. Work until my muscles shook. Eat simple food. Sleep hard. It was exhausting. And it was the first time in years my mind was quiet. Miss Eleanor filled the silence with stories, fragments of memory stitched together with love. She talked about Micah as a boy, about scraped knees and broken fishing rods, about how he cried the first time he lost a race. He hated losing, she'd laugh, even then. Sometimes her clarity sharpened suddenly, like a blade flashed from nowhere. You remember Eli, don't you? She asked one evening, staring at me too intently. My heart skipped. Yes, I said carefully. She nodded. Good boy. He always needed someone steady beside him. She didn't know how right she was. The letters bothered me. Every week, a new one appeared in her drawer. Always optimistic, always loving, always written in Micah's handwriting. I asked Brenda about them one night while we sat on the porch watching fog creep through the valley. I write them, she admitted after a long pause. Dictated by Eleanor years ago. Then, continued, it was the only thing keeping her alive. I didn't judge her. Some lies keep people breathing. As October bled into November, cold rains settled in. The house, despite my repairs, fought back. Damp crept into everything. Miss Eleanor started coughing first lightly, then deeply. Brenda came daily. She's developing pneumonia, she said quietly. At her age, it's dangerous. The road washed out 2 days later. Then the storm came. Wind screamed through the trees. Rain slammed the roof like fists. Water began dripping inside, then pouring. One leak turned into many. I climbed into the attic with a lamp, trying to block the hole. That's when the floor gave way. I barely caught myself. As I pulled back, gasping, I noticed something beneath an old wooden chest, a small metal box. Curiosity cut through fear. Inside were documents, not memories, plans, detailed, calculated, cold. Micah's handwriting. It was all there. Shell companies, forged signatures, financial transfers. The blueprint of my destruction. At the bottom, a line burned into my mind. Eli is too honest. He'll never understand that business is war. I sat on the attic floor while the storm raged, holding proof that could destroy him. Below me, Miss Eleanor coughed herself awake. Reality snapped back. By morning, her fever was worse. Brenda looked exhausted. She needs real antibiotics. A hospital. There's no way out, I said. There is, she replied, but it's dangerous. A forest ranger, a radio, 6 miles through flooded woods and a fast river. I didn't hesitate. We left her sedated and sleeping. The woods were brutal. Mud swallowed boots. Rain soaked us to the bone. The river nearly took me. Brenda saved me with a grip like iron. At the ranger's cabin, I made the call. Micah, I said, your mother is alive and dying. Silence. I have your past, I continued, and I'm not asking. Send help, or I send this to the authorities. 3 hours. That's all I gave him. The helicopter arrived just after dark. Doctors moved fast, efficient, silent. As they carried her out, Miss Eleanor opened her eyes. Micah, she whispered. I'm here, I said, and I meant it. When the helicopter vanished into the night, the house felt empty again. But something inside me was solid now. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was standing. The silence after the helicopter left was heavier than the storm. Redemption Creek had never felt so empty. The house, once filled with Miss Eleanor's humming and soft footsteps, now echoed with absence. I stood on the porch long after the sound faded, staring into the dark sky, my hands shaking not from cold, but from finality. I had crossed every line. There was no going back to being invisible. The next morning, Brenda returned with red eyes and a thermos of coffee. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She simply sat beside me on the steps. She's stable, she said. For now. Relief hit me like a physical thing. But relief wasn't the end of this story. Justice was. I left Redemption Creek 3 days later, not running, walking out with my head up. The bus ride back felt shorter, different. I wasn't escaping anymore. I was carrying something forward. The metal box stayed locked in my bag, heavier than any weight I'd ever held. When I stepped into the city again, it didn't welcome me. Cities never do. They wait to see who survives them. I went straight to a lawyer, then another, then another. 3 said no. 1 didn't. She was sharp-eyed, mid-40s, with a voice that didn't waste time. If this is real, she said after reviewing the documents, your friend is finished. He's not my friend, I replied. The case moved faster than I expected. Turns out betrayal leaves a paper trail, especially when arrogance convinces a man he's untouchable. Micah didn't call. Not once. He knew. The arrest happened quietly. No cameras, no drama, just handcuffs in a glass lobby and whispers behind palms. The trial took 6 months. I sat through every day. Micah never looked at me until the final week. When he did, his eyes weren't angry. They were afraid. The verdict came back unanimous. Guilty. Fraud. Embezzlement. Identity manipulation. The sentence wasn't poetic, just final. I felt nothing when the gavel fell. No triumph. No joy. Just release. Afterward, I visited Miss Eleanor. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fading flowers. She was thinner, fragile, but alive. She smiled when she saw me. You stayed, she said softly. Yes, I replied. I stayed. She took my hand. You're a good man, she whispered. Better than he ever was. She passed 2 weeks later. At the funeral, Micah wasn't allowed to attend. Brenda stood beside me. Redemption Creek showed up, more people than I'd ever seen there at once. They didn't know the full story. They didn't need to. After everything settled, I sold my share of the restored company. Not for millions. Just enough. Enough to rebuild the house. Enough to fund a clinic. Enough to stay free. I returned to Redemption Creek for good. The house stands solid now. The roof doesn't leak. The stove burns warm. Children play near the creek again. Sometimes, when the wind moves just right, I swear I hear her humming. I keep the keys Micah gave me on the wall, not as a reminder of him, but of who I chose to be. I didn't win by becoming cruel. I won by refusing to stop being human. And that changed everything.